Okay, so we're doing something different tonight. A little bit of a backdrop, which I put this in the description, but normally my process is I write a one-page Devar Torah article every Friday. So my process is I start looking for topics the Shabbos before. So let's say this Shabbos we're reading Parashas Truma. So this Shabbos I would be starting to look for topics for Parashas Tetzaveh. Okay, so when we were in Yisro, I was looking through Parashas Mishpatim, and I saw this pasuk, which I do Shnai Mikra, I read the psukim all the time. Saw this pasuk that just leapt out at me that I had no idea what it meant, and I never looked into it. So I found this topic, I started working on it, and I intended to write an article about it for Mishpatim. That whole week went by, and I was working on it, and couldn't come up with anything. So then it was about the Mizbeach, and so I figured, okay, this week is Parshas Truma, so I can still kind of write a Devar Torah on Parshas Mishpatim as long as it has something to do with the Mizbeach, because that's in the base of Mikdash in the Mishkan. I worked on it. I've worked on this hours every day, just hours and hours and hours. And it's one of these things where I'm at a standstill, and how sometimes if you're writing a paper or something, you've looked at it so much that you can't. The idea could be staring you in the face, and you just don't know if you just can't see it anymore. You can't think objectively. So that's kind of the point where I'm at. So I feel like I need to just go through everything that I found, present it to fresh eyes, and ears and minds, and then hopefully you guys can help me to pull it together, because I have to not only write this not have to. I'm going to be writing this for my article for Friday, and I also have to give this as Devar Torah on Friday night at shul. So there's a lot riding on this. Okay, so I hope that we come up with something. Worst comes to worst, I'm just gonna present the questions in shul, and then we'll see what happens. But okay, so it's kind of an obscure area, but thankfully the psukim are very short. All right, so this is in Parashas Mishpatim, Shemos 21, 12 through 14. Okay, so this is the first presentation of the categories of the laws of murder to Bnei Israel. Okay, and I say categories of laws of murder to Bnei Israel because you have the Isser of murder that's presented to Bnei Noach in Bereshis Perek Tes after Noach gets off the Teva. Then you have in the Isser Dibros Lo Tirtzach, okay, which is the Lo Saseh. But then here's what do we do with the murderers? Okay, so we have this. Make ish vames mosumas. He who strikes a man so that he dies will be put to death. All right. So plain shot, that is the death penalty. Okay, and that is for someone. So it's unclear. If you just read this, it makes it sound like anyone who kills anybody just gets killed. Okay, which in a sense is going to be true. We'll see that in a little while. Okay, but then it subdivides and gives you the two cases of killing. Va'asher lo tzada v'ha'elukim inali ado. Actually, yeah, we talked about this pasuk in the accidental death shiur. That's actually what planted it in my mind. He who did not act with planning or premeditation, v'ha'elukim inali ado, but God caused it to come about by his hand. V'samti lacha makom asher yanus shama. I will make for you a place to which he might flee. Okay, so that is the cities of refuge. All right. Then it says, so that's unintentional killing, which we call in English manslaughter. Okay. Then it says, V'chi yazid ish al re'ehu lehargo be'arma. And if a person willfully acts against his fellow to kill him with cunning, okay, and the reason why I have to say with cunning or with malice is because it's excluding a case where, let's say you're a doctor and you are doing an operation and you intentionally cut open the guy's chest and he dies. So that's intentional, but that's not considered murder, because even though you did it with intent, it was not with malice. It wasn't with arma, with cunning. So what's the halacha? Mi'im mizbechi tikachenu lamus. From my altar, you shall take him to die. Okay, now, I don't know if any of you have looked into that halacha, but I've read it so many times and what is that saying? Take him from my altar to die? Okay, it's just a very strange pasuk. Okay, so I mean, I kind of alluded to it, that there is this idea that apparently the altar. Okay, well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. Okay, so let's just go through this step by step. Okay, the pasuk implies that if the guy kills, willfully with malice, then you shall take him from my altar to die. So what would you say the halacha, the implication is if he did not kill with malice? What's the halacha vis-a-vis the altar? Yeah.
You don't take him.
You don't take him to die.
altar.
Okay, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's the implication. If you just had Torah B'Ksav, that's what you would say. Okay, so you would say that somehow the altar provides refuge or sanctuary from getting killed, from the death penalty. Okay. So that's what we're going to examine, because the Torah Shabbal Peh swoops in and gives 3 qualifications to this law. That is where all my questions come from. Okay. But before we do that, let's just see what we know about murder. Okay. So yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize this now. So you're saying that the Mizbeach kind of acts like a ear miklat?
Yes.
In this case?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And this is one of these areas where you can feel, the Rambam has as the title of, it's not the title, the crowning pasuk of the whole Mishnah Torah is Az lo evosh b'habiti al kol mitzvosacha, which means then I will not be ashamed when I look upon all your mitzvos. And the basic idea is that, when you look at a mitzvah and you don't know what it is, or you're not even aware of it, and you don't know what the halachos are, there's a certain shame. But if you learn the entire Mishnah Torah, then you won't be ashamed anymore. So this is an area. There's a lot of areas like that in Torah, but this is one where I think we're going to experience a lot of shame, because this is foreign territory. Okay, so if you're like, oh man, how did I not know that? You're in good company. Okay, you're shameful, but you're in good company of shame. Okay, so let's just go through, speaking of what we know and what we don't know. Okay, so if you murder someone, okay, what happens to you? And I'm saying that in the broadest way possible. I'll ask you more explicit questions. Let's say you're really mad one day and you go and you kill somebody. Okay, so what happens next? And we're talking in the time of the basic Mikdash and everything. What would you say? I know that's a very vague question. Yeah, Lauren.
Well, I guess if there were 2 witnesses, then would they go to a Sanhedrin and then bring them to court?
Correct. So if there are 2 witnesses, so then they would bring the person to court. Okay, but what do the witnesses have to do in addition to being there and witnessing?
Warn him.
Now, why do they have to warn him? It's not just to be nice.
To see his intention.
Right? So the way it works is the 2 witnesses have to say, hey, guy, don't you know that murder is chayav misa, right? Or chayav misa by decapitation. I forgot what we passed in, if you have to warn with a specific punishment. And the guy has to say within tochdei dibur, which is the amount of time it takes to say shalom alecha Rebbe, he has to say, yes, I know, and I'm doing it anyway, and he has to do it. Okay, because otherwise, how do you know that it was intentional? Maybe the guy, shogig is defined in general as unintentional is defined as you either didn't know that the thing was usher or forgot it, or you didn't realize that that's what you were doing, right? So you have to know, maybe the guy thinks that this is there's that case with Alec Baldwin, right? Where he shot a gun and it was on a set and he thought it was a prop, right? Because it's supposed to be a prop, but it was like a loaded gun. So if you're watching Alec Baldwin and he is acting and he fires a gun at somebody and kills them, that looks intentional, right? So how can you tell? The only way you can tell is if you ask the guy, if you warn the guy and then he says that he's doing it intentionally. Okay, so that's if there are 2 witnesses and they take him to court. And then if you go through the whole Beis Din process, then the guy gets capital punishment, right? Okay, so what happens if there are no, let's say you go back to our case, rewind. Let's say you murder someone and there are no witnesses. What do you do other than bury the body? What should you do if you are what would you do in that case?
Maybe run to an iron miklat, miklat.
Yeah, why?
Because if no one warned you and they don't know your intention, then technically it's unintentional, maybe.
Okay. Very close. Okay, so I did not know this, that you run to an ear miklat. Okay, so we'll look at that. All right. Now let's just go to the other case where, let's say you kill someone unintentionally, right? Now, just to be clear about about what the halacha is, there's 3 levels. So shogig means unintentional. There's 3 levels of shogig. Okay, there's shogig karuv lemezid, which means unintentional that's close to intentional, and that would be a case where you do something reckless. Okay, and you didn't mean to kill the person, but you're doing something reckless, like I don't know if this applies, but let's say like you run around firing a gun with your eyes closed in a crowded theater and you kill somebody. So you can't say that you killed the person intentionally, but it's not just unintentional. So in that case, it is, since it's close to intentional, the ir miklat doesn't take you. And the halacha is you have to just like be on the run for the rest of your life, okay? Because the gol hadam can kill you. All right. The opposite extreme is shogeg karav laones, which is a complete freak accident, right? Like you go up to someone and you say, hey bro, and you pat him on the back, and little do you know that like the pat like dislodges like a bone, and then the bone like gets into his blood and then goes to his brain and kills him, right? So that is completely, even though it was unintentional, you killed him, that's considered onus, and you don't get any punishment. Okay, you don't have to go to the ir miklat. Obviously, they have to put you on trial to determine these things. Okay, so the only case with shogeg is where it was unintentional, and if you had taken more precaution, then you could have prevented it, right? So like the classic case is you're chopping wood in the forest and you don't check to make sure that the axe head is attached to the axe, and you swing it and it flies off and kills somebody. All right. So again, basically, there's all these complicated halachas about how to evaluate these things, but those are the basic halachas. Okay. So let's say you accidentally kill someone in shogeg that makes you flee to the ir miklat. So you have to flee to the ir miklat, okay, because of why? What are you fleeing from? Anyone know? Yeah, Alex?
Isn't it like their next of kin or something can come and like avenge them?
Okay, good. So the next of kin, who's called the goel hadam, which literally means blood redeemer, but people in English for some reason call it blood avenger. So what can the next of kin do?
They
Yeah, go ahead.
can kill you to avenge them, essentially.
Right, they can kill you. Right? So if you make it to the ir miklat.
What would happen? This is definitely a tangent, but what would happen in the case of someone who doesn't have next of kin?
All right, go. We'll read that halacha. Okay. Yeah, we're going to read through the halachas. By the way, just to explain what I'm doing here, I personally think it is a useful thing when you go into any halachic area, but especially an area that you're only vaguely familiar with, to go through in your mind, what do I know about this? And then you look at the halachos, and then you compare the two, okay? So they take you to the ir miklat, okay? Oh, sorry, you go to the ir miklat, so you don't get killed by the goel hadam. Then what happens? Yeah, Tamar?
You have to stay there until the Kohen Gadol dies, right?
That comes later, because there's one important step that happens when you get to the ir miklat. What needs to happen before like you get that sentence?
Your Rav moves in.
That would actually happen when you get the sentence. You actually have to go to trial. Okay. So let's actually now, I think we're in a position where we could read the halachos. Okay. I think I wasn't sure how much you guys knew about the case. So
Wait,
we're
sorry,
gonna.
what did Ayala just say? I think I just didn't hear it.
Your Rav moves in. Okay,
okay.
there's a halacha that
Okay, interesting.
yeah, and just, I mean I love that halacha, but I'm not gonna dwell on it. But just to state what it is when you get sentenced to the ir miklat, you have to they have to provide you with everything you need to live. And the halacha is that if a Rav goes into the ir miklat, they exile his yeshiva with him. And if a Talmud gets put into the ir miklat, they exile the Rav with him, because a life without learning is like death. And Rav needs his Talmidim and vice versa. Yeah, Ayala?
So let's say it was either the shogeg ones or the shogeg other way.
Yeah.
Would he still run to the ir miklat because, like, before the trial, because he doesn't know?
Yes, exactly. Okay, all right. So that's this is I did not know until I read these halachos again. Okay, so here we go. So this is in the Rambam in the book of damages in Halakhos רוצach, ושמירת הנפש, the last section, the laws of murder and guarding life. And he starts off by saying, Kol horig nefesh adam miYisrael over below say. Anyone who kills the soul of a Jewish person violates a lo taseh shnemar lo tirtzach, as it says, do not murder. Okay, now I always make a big deal about how you should use the uncensored Ramams. So you can guess in the censored Ramams, they change it to anyone who kills a human soul. Okay, because it's bad optics. It looks like it's saying that it's usher to kill non-Jews. Okay. It's not actually, sorry, it looks like it's saying it's mutter to kill non-Jews. It's not actually mutter to kill non-Jews, right? So why is it, why does he specify killing a Jewish soul? Plain shot, at least. Well, why would he specify a Jewish soul? Yeah, tomorrow.
Maybe that's just what this losa says that he's talking about.
Okay, good. Yeah. So lo tirtzach in the Aseret Dibros is murdering a Jew. Okay. How do we know that killing any human life is asur? If not from lo tirtzach? Because I think a lot of people think lo tirtzach is talking specifically about or talking about all human life. So this is actually one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, right? That it says Shofek dam ha'adam ba'adam damu yishafech ki b'telem elokim asa asa adam. That one who spills the blood of a person, that person's blood should be spilled because he was created in the Telem Elokim. Okay, so there is a broader isser of murder in general. Yeah, Ayala?
How do we know, or is it just Masor? I guess that this is only talking about Jews, lo tirtzach?
Good question. I don't know. I'm assuming that it's just the Torah Sheba'al Peh, but I don't know. I'm not familiar with the drashos. Okay, the Imratach Bazadim B'fnei Edim Yisasu B'Sayif. If he killed intentionally in front of witnesses, then his death is by the sword. Shneimar Nakom Yinakim. It says you should take vengeance. Mipi Shmuel Lamdu Shazom Yisasayif. And from the Torah Sheba'al Peh tells us that phrase of take vengeance means killing with a sword. That's decapitation. Okay. Bein Shaharag Es Chavira Babarzel. And I believe this is the only. I have to check. I think this is the only. I'm going to check just so I don't say anything false. I believe this is the only one of the losa says of the Torah that you get the death penalty by the sword, by decapitation. The only other thing that you get decapitated for is for rebelling against the king, or when the king decides to execute someone like in an extrajudicial way. Hold on just a second here. I'm just going to check this here. He says, Kol chayavi. Just a second, I just want to make sure that this is correct. Mitzvahs haneragim. Nope, that's just saying who. Hold on. Kol nisrafim. Yeah, רוצח and nidach. Okay, so the only people who are executed are either a רוצach. Sorry, the only people who get decapitation are a murderer and then someone who's Yerhani Dachas. Okay, so there's two of them. All right. So he says, Bein Shahar Es Chavira Babarzel, Bein Shosraf B'Eish Misasu B'Sai. It doesn't matter how the murderer killed, he gets killed with the decapitation. Okay. Now here's a halacha that, again, open halacha I just didn't know. Okay. In general, with death penalties, like for all of the death penalties, who carries out the death penalty? Like who actually kills the person? It's an interesting halacha.
Is it like the person who, I mean, I think by like a Yerhani Dachat or something, it's like the people who he was trying to convince or something?
I don't know if there's a special halacha there. I'd have to look into that, but I don't think that's the general halacha. The general halacha is it's the witnesses, okay? And the reason why we actually give a whole speech to the witnesses before they testify, we say, basically, don't you know that what you're saying is serious, and that if your testimony is accepted, and if this person gets convicted, he's going to die, and you have to be so serious about this that you're going to kill him. So this is not like nowadays where someone can like make an accusation in cancel culture and like totally destroy someone's life, and then they're just some anonymous troll on the internet or whatever. I know that's an extreme thing, right? But like you have to be willing to kill them with your hand. So I was under the impression that that's the case with a murder also. Yeah, Alex?
But wouldn't that law necessarily disincentivize like sensitive people from like coming forward as a witness?
Yeah, it would. And you have an obligation to come forward as a witness. So yeah, you have to, it's a tough mitzvah, but yep. Yeah, I mean, in point in fact, it's very hard to actually execute somebody in halacha, right? That's the whole thing, is that they have all these mechanisms to make sure you don't actually get to the point where you're the person's chayiv misa, and like, one court that kills someone in 7 years or 70 years is considered a bloody Sanhedrin. So practically speaking, it's not going to, be a problem in most cases. Okay, but here, who kills him? Mitzvah biad goel hadam. The mitzvah to kill the murderer is in the hand of the goel hadam. Shneimar goel hadam hu yamis as a rotzeach. The Goel Hadam kills the murderer. V'chol haroy lirusha hu Goel Hadam. Anyone who is fit for inheritance is Goel Hadam. Now here he's going to answer your question from before. Lo ratza Goel Hadam. If the Goel Hadam does not want to do it, o shalohaya yachal hamiso, or he can't kill him. Like let's say he's like, very old and he can't his hitman days are over, or his bounty hunter days are over. O she'ein lo Goel Hadam, or let's say you just don't have any relatives who are fit for inheritance. Beistin memisin esaroteh posayif. Then Beistin executes him. Okay, so that's the basic halacha. All right. Now let's skip to the this is chapter 1. We're skipping all the way to chapter 5 to talk about the halachos of shogeg killing. Okay, so here's another halacha I did not know, and so this is Ayala, you were right, but for the wrong reason. Batchila echad shogeg ve'echad mezid makdim la'arei miklat. So initially, whether you killed someone unintentionally or intentionally, you run to the ir miklat, to the cities of refuge. Okay, and just factually speaking, there were anyone know how many cities of refuge there were? And this is a trick question. You can say the answer that you could fall into the trap if you want, if you know.
Okay, I'm assuming the not trick answer is 6.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So there were 6 cities of refuge, and that is a true fact. Okay. And these were cities of refuge that were dispersed equally distant all over Eretz Yisrael. Okay. But why is it a trick answer? So this is also something I found out. So there are 48 cities of Levim altogether, 6 of which are a miklat. All the cities of the Levim you can take refuge in. Okay, there were 6 that were designated specifically for Arei Miklat, but if you ran to one of the cities of Levim, then you can also get refuge, according to the Rambam. Okay, so there's really lots of cities of refuge all over the place. And in the same way, like in Far Rockaway, we have hurricane evacuation signs. You have city of refuge signs. So in case you kill someone, you know where to go. Okay, so whether you kill someone intentionally or unintentionally, you run to the Ir Miklat. Okay, and you have to run because the Goel Hadam can kill you. Okay. So then the Beistin of the city that you killed in sends for you, and you go there and are put on trial. It says they send the elders of the city and they take him from there. So now there's 3 possibilities of what can happen to you on trial. Mishin is chayiv misa. If you were liable for the death penalty, mimisin also, then they kill the person. As it says, they give him to the Goel Hadam. Okay, so that's if you're convicted of murder. Misha sheniftar potrin so. Someone who is exempt, they exempt him. The congregation shall save the murderer from the hand of the Goel Hadam. That's a person, let's say that they find that that it was totally accidental, or that the witnesses weren't good or whatever. Okay, so you go free. Mishin is chayiv galus, but if you were liable for exile, okay, which means that you were convicted of killing someone unintentionally with negligence, machzirin oso l'makomo, then they return him to his place, meaning to the city of refuge. Shneim rav heshiva oso ha'ida el ir miklato, they return him to his ir miklat. And then it says, Meshivin lo, when they return him, Mostin lo shnei Talmidei Chachamim, he's accompanied by 2 Talmidei Chachamim, who I imagine are buff and have guns. Okay, because Shema Yahargenu Goel Hadam B'derech, maybe the Goel Hadam is going to ambush him on the way. I keep forgetting to look this up. I'm pretty sure that this is what happened to the guy who assassinated JFK. Does that sound familiar to anybody? That he was murdered by some other assassin, before he went to jail? Anyone know their history? Okay, I think that's what happened. I might be getting it mixed up with another famous assassination, but I'm pretty sure it was JFK. Okay, anyway, so they tell him, these Talmidei Chachamim, if they see the Goel Hadam, they tell him, don't be a murderer. Don't be like a murderer. This guy killed by unintentionally. So they take him to the city, and then that's where he lives until the Kohen Gadol dies. Okay. All right. Yeah, Ayala.
If someone killed Ones,
Yeah.
would the Goel Hadam? Oh no, actually not Ones. Let's say it was shogeg, but there is no 2 witnesses.
Yeah.
Would the Goel Hadam still be able to kill him?
Good question. So I think that it's a good question. That's a very basic question. I don't know I don't know the answer to, because the Rambam is dealing with a case where you actually go on trial. But if there are no witnesses and you don't go on trial, then what happens? I don't know the answer to that question. My intuition is that I don't know, actually. I'm not sure. Okay. רוצח בשגגה, because part of it, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, רוצח בשגגה שהרגו גול האדם חוץ לתחום עיר מקלטו. So if a רוצח, if the murderer, if someone who killed the homicider, the person who, the manslaughterer, if the person who killed unintentionally, if the Gol Hadam kills him outside of the city boundaries of the Ir Miklat, pater, then the Gol Hadam is exempt. Shnemar v'lo ein mishpat mavis. It says that he cannot get the death penalty for killing the unintentional murder. Okay. Echad horgo b'derech kodem shikanis le'ir miklato. Whether he kills him before he enters into the Ir Miklat initially, or whether he kills him upon his return with the two who are guarding him. So let's say like the two Talmidei Chachamim are guarding the guy, and you get out your sniper rifle, you're the Gol Hadam, and you snipe him, you don't get the death penalty. Okay. But nichnas le'ir miklato, once the guy enters into the Ir Miklat, v'yatza chutz l'tchumim, nichnas le'ir miklato, if he goes into the Ir Miklat, v'yatza chutz l'tchum bezadon, and he exits the boundary intentionally, harizeh hitir atzmo lemisa, he has given himself over to death. Urishus l'gol hadam lahargo, and the Gol Hadam can kill him. And not only that, v'im harago kol adam, if anyone kills him, ein chayavin alav, then they are not liable. Okay, so you're if you're shnemar ein lo dam, it says the unintentional murder has no blood. Okay, which is more dramatic in Hebrew, because in Hebrew the phrase for blood for killing is shofech damim, one who spills blood. So if you are an unintentional killer, it's like you have no blood. So if someone kills you outside of the Ir Miklat, they didn't spill blood, you know. And if the Gol Hadam kills you, that's actually his mitzvah. So it turns out that in the pasuk, it actually is true that the pasuk said, oh, why did I go all the way down there? Pasuk says, Maki ish v'meis mos yumas. In a way, it's true. Anyone who kills another soul has forfeited his life, right? If it's b'mezid, then you actually get executed. If it's b'shogeg, you have forfeited your life, but we provide refuge in the Ir Miklat. But if you leave the Ir Miklat, anyone can kill you, and they got off scot-free. Okay. And then the last halacha, which there's a question that I'm sure one of you is going to ask that I don't know the answer to. Yatza chutz l'tchum ir miklato b'shgaga. Let's say you, the murderer, leave the boundary of the city unintentionally. Kol hahorgo. So this is a weird halacha. Anyone who kills him, bein Gol Hadam, bein shar adam, gole al yado, they get galus. Okay. Harago b'soch tchum ir miklato, and if someone kills him in the Ir Miklat, afilu Gol Hadam, even the Gol Hadam, harizeh neragalav, then that person gets executed. Okay. The question that I think someone's going to ask me is, how do you know whether the guy left the Ir Miklat intentionally or unintentionally? You know, and if you ask him, hey, did you leave, intentionally? He's probably going to say no, right? So I don't exactly know how that halacha works. Nor do I know why, if they kill him and he leaves unintentionally, I think the reason why they get gullus is because I guess we assume that they thought that he left intentionally, and that's why they killed him. Okay, so that takes care of the overview of the halachas of the Ir Miklat. Okay, and the next halacha is about the Mizbeach. But are there any questions on the Ir Miklat halacha or the Gol Hadam halacha? Because that's the basis of what we're going to do now. Yeah, Tamar?
Do you have any sort of idea of why this is a construct that's happening? Like for example, if someone kills unintentionally out of negligence, like it's just, I don't know, this is a very unusual thing to have. Like, why don't they get like lashes or something? I don't know. Like, why is it this running away thing?
Okay, so that's a good question. So there are different answers given to that. Because if you look, okay, the laws of the Ir Miklat are presented in two places. They're presented in Masei at the end of Bamidbar, and they're presented in Shoftim, Parashas Shoftim in Sefer Devarim. And I just read an article this morning by Rabbi Amnon Bazak, who goes through and he compares how the laws are presented and which laws and which phrasing and which tones are presented. And he basically makes an argument that on the one hand, then the institution of the Ir Miklat is a punishment, okay, that you get exiled, okay. And by the way, side point, it's funny how like in the Soviet Union, when you get exiled, you get sent to Siberia, which is outside of the cities, and most exiles outside of the city, I think in societies here, we get exiled into the cities, which is just a weird phenomenon, and someone pointed out that Cain was the first murderer, and he gets exiled, and then he builds a city. So I don't know. This is a strange thing, but so in one parsha in the Torah, I forgot which is which, it makes it seem like a punishment. Okay, but in another framework, it is treated as a almost like a chesed, not a chesed, as rachamim to the manslaughterer, because the Goel Adam really has the right to kill him, and we provide safe haven for him. And I actually was reading Rabbi Jonathan Sachs' essay on ethics on Masei, and he notes that this is just a one paragraph, or I'll just read two paragraphs here. He says, actually, I'm going to read just three paragraphs. Rambam gives a completely different explanation in the Guide for the Perplexed 340. For him, the issue at stake is not atonement, but protection. Right. So that if it's a punishment, then it's like atonement for the person. Okay. The reason the man goes into the city of exile, goes into exile in a city of refuge, is to allow the passions of the relative of the victim, the blood redeemer, to cool. The exile stays there until the death of the high priest, because his death creates a mood of national mourning, which dissolves the longing for revenge. Quote, for it is a natural phenomenon that we find consolation in our misfortune when the same misfortune or greater befalls another person. Among us, no death causes more grief than that of the high priest. Now, most of you were not, I don't think, have experienced periods of like nationwide mourning for an individual. The closest thing I can remember, and I was not even really so aware of this, but I remember, I mean, you can see it on TV, when Princess Diana died, like everyone just was upset, even in America. Or in America, I mean, when JFK was assassinated, when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, there's like this national mourning, and that's what we're talking about here. So Rabbi Sachs goes on, he says, the desire for revenge is basic. It exists in all societies. It leads to cycles of retaliation, represented in the fictional Montagues against the Capulets in Romeo and Juliet, the Corleones and Tartaglias in The Godfather, that have no natural end. Wars of the clans were capable of destroying whole societies. The Torah, understanding that the desire for revenge is natural, tames it by translating it into something else altogether. It recognizes the pain, the loss, and the moral indignation of the victim's family. That is the meaning of the phrase Goel Hadam, the blood redeemer, the figure who represents that instinct for revenge. The Torah legislates for people with all their passions, not for saints. It is a realistic code, not a utopian one. Yet, the Torah inserts one vital element between the killer and the victim's family: the principle of justice. There must be no direct act of revenge. The killer must be protected until his case has been heard in a court of law. If found guilty, he must pay the price. If found innocent, he must be given refuge. This single act turns revenge into retribution. This makes all the difference. Again, he goes on, and this is just an excerpt from the whole Torah, but that's how I understand it, which is that, there are many cases where the Torah recognizes that human nature is going to lead you to do certain things. And in many cases, the Torah prevents that, but in some cases, the Torah channels it or mitigates it. And in this case, it was, I guess, so understandable, so common for people to have blood vengeance that that for the Torah to stop it might be unrealistic. So the Torah provides this like safe haven and a halachic system and puts it in terms of justice. Does that, I hope I hope that's an answer to your question.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, now we get to the meat. Okay, the Mizbeach. That's not a Mizbeach joke. Okay, you bring meat on the Mizbeach. Okay, HaMizbeach kolet. The Mizbeach provides sanctuary. Shahari nemar b'horeg bezadon mi'imizbechi tikachen lamus, as it says by the killer b'mezid, that from my Mizbeach you shall take him to die. Michlal, this implies shahoreg bishkaga, that someone who killed unintentionally Eno neharag b'mizbeach, is not killed on the Mizbeach. Lefikach hahorig bishkaga uklato Mizbeach. Therefore, so what does that mean practically? If someone killed bishkaga and he takes refuge in the Mizbeach, v'harago sham Goel Hadam, and the Goel Hadam kills him there, harizen neharag alav, then the Goel Hadam is executed. Kimi shaharago b'soch ir miklato, just like someone who is killed in an ir miklat. So like Lauren said earlier, the Mizbeach is an ir miklat, basically. Okay. So if we stopped here, that's what you would get from the psukim, okay? But there are rules, okay? And I'll actually lead with a story from Sefer Malachim Aleph, chapter 2, 28 through 34. The news, so this is right after David HaMelech dies, and David HaMelech gives Shlomo some missions, some deathbed missions, and one of them is to kill Yoav, because Yoav killed what's his name? Amasha, I don't know my Navi very well, and Avner. Okay, so it says the news reached Yoav, and he was frightened, for Yoav had sided with Adoniah, although he did not side with Absalom. Yoav fled to the tent of Hashem and took hold of the horns of the altar. It was told King Solomon that Yoav had fled to the tent of Hashem, and that he was there next to the altar. So Shlomo sent Benayahu, son of Yehoiada, saying, "Go strike him down." Okay, then there's a whole dramatic thing, and then so Benayahu, son of Yehoiada, went up and struck him and killed him, and he was buried at his house in the desert. Okay, so Yoav tries to implement this halacha. Okay, apparently it doesn't work. Why not? So the Rambam explains, okay, the Gemara also explains, but I'm going to read from the Rambam. By the way, you should know that there's a lot of machlokas here. I'm only doing the Rambam's opinion, okay, and there's a lot of opposite machlokas here, okay? Here's what the Rambam says. In kolet ella, so there's three conditions. In kolet, well, condition one is it has to be b'shogeg, but within shogeg, there's three conditions. In kolet ella, gago shal mizbeach. So the only thing that provides sanctuary is the roof, the top of the Mizbeach. So here's the Mizbeach. So there's the ramp, there's the horns, there's the sides, and then the roof is the platform. That's the only part of the Mizbeach that provides refuge, okay? And it's not just any Mizbeach, it's Shel Mizbeach Beis Olamim Bilvad. Only the Mizbeach in the base of Mikdash, okay? Ve'eno kolet ella, here's the strangest one, Kohen va'avoda biado. It only provides refuge for a Kohen who is doing the avoda. Okay. Aval zar, but if you are a non-Kohen, O Kohen she'eno oved b'shasha nerag, or you're a Kohen, but you happen to not be doing avoda at the time when the Gol Hadam kills you. O shahaya oved, or you're doing avoda, v'lo haya al gago, but you're not on the roof of the Mizbeach, ela samach Mizbeach, but you're close to the Mizbeach. O ochez b'karnosav, or you're clinging to its horns, eno niklat, then it does not provide refuge. Okay. So Yoav, the Gemara says Yoav made three mistakes. Okay. Number one is he grabbed onto the horns of the Mizbeach, but the only part that provides refuge is the top of the Mizbeach. Okay. Two is that he grabbed onto the Mizbeach in the tent of Hashem. Okay. Which was in one of the tabernacles. This is really before the base Mikdash was built, okay? And those mizbachos don't provide refuge. And then the third one is he's not a Kohen, he wasn't doing the avoda, okay? And this is why you should always pay attention in halacha class, because you might make a mistake like this and it might cost you your life. Okay, yeah, Lauren?
But didn't he also kill not the shogeg in those cases?
So that's a whole question that they say about why does the Gemara say he only what do you call it? Why does the Gemara say that he only made three mistakes? It sure said he made a fourth mistake, which is that the Mizbeach only provides refuge for someone who killed B'shogeg, not Bezadon, and he killed Bezadon. So there's many different answers given. One is that he did kill B'shogeg because he thought that he was being ordered to kill and he didn't do it in murder, and they tried to justify how it was really shogeg. Another answer we're going to see in a little while, but they try to give answers for that. Okay. We're going to try to keep it simple for now. Okay. But now what happens? Okay. Let's say you're a Kohen and you're on okay, here's the dramatic scenario, right? You accidentally killed somebody. Okay. B'shogeg. You see the Gol Hadam and you're nowhere near you're in Yerushalayim and you're nowhere near the cities of refuge. So you run to the Mikdash, you knock everyone out of the way, hopefully not killing anybody, and you run up to the Mizbeach and say, someone give me a lamb as a chatas, and you shech the lamb. So right now you have refuge. Are you supposed to stay there just doing the avoda for the rest of your life? What happens now? So the answer is no. Kol mi shekalato ha-mizbeach, anyone who the Mizbeach provides sanctuary for, im menichan oso sham, then they don't leave him there. They give him guards and then they take him to the Ir Miklat. So when I was going over this with Isaiah, Isaiah said, so it's like a portal. Like, you run to the Mizbeach and you go and then zoop, it zips you to the Ir Miklat, and then the whole rest of the process happens. Okay, yeah, Ayala?
Also, this is kind of a side point, but if he killed, then you'd probably be tameh mace, right?
That's
then you wouldn't even be able to.
Yeah,
do
so
that.
it's an interesting thing because because I mean, technically, it is possible to kill without being tummy mace. Like if you shoot somebody with a gun, right? But yeah, I mean, my guess is he's probably going to end up either violating a lot of halachos to get there, or remember, this could happen much later, right? Like he could have gone to a mikvah already, and like this is happening like years later. Yeah. Okay. Now there's one more halacha. Oh, so here's my main question. Okay. My main question is, what is the deal with this halacha? Okay. If you just had the Torah B'chsav, you would ask the question in general of what is the idea that the Mizbeach provides sanctuary, right? We have cities of refuge. Why the Mizbeach? Okay. But then once you see these strictures in the Torah Peh, it makes the parameters so narrow that, and this is my assumption, okay, you can argue with this, cities of refuge are practical, okay? Everything about them screams practicality. This almost reminds me of like the halachos of the Ben Sora or Mora, which are so narrow that like the case is virtually never going to happen. And the reason why the halachos are there is to teach you ideas, So whether you say this halacha is actually, of course it can be implemented, but whether it was implemented or not, I want to know what's the idea that it only provides sanctuary for a shogeg killer on the Mizbeach in the Mikdash, on the roof of the Mizbeach, when he's doing avoda as a Kohen. What is that idea? Okay. And then one more halacha. Bamei devarim amurim, when do we say that all of this applies? Where the Mizbeach provides, a sanctuary under these conditions. B'mechuy of galus. That's by someone who is liable for exile. Aval misha pachad min hamelech shelo yahargenu b'din hamalchus. Someone who is afraid of the king, who's afraid that the king is going to kill him extrajudiciously, right? So a king can put anyone to death for disobeying him, okay, or putting him on trial. So let's say you're running away from the king, all right. Omi Bastin Shlo Yaharguhu Harasha. Okay, Bastin can also give a harasha, which is a temporary measure. Like let's say, classic cases, let's say like a guy is clearly a serial killer and everyone knows it, and like he just gets off on technicalities on the trial. Bastin can still say, okay, we're gonna kill him. So if one of those guys runs, Ubarach la Mizbeach, and he runs to the Mizbeach, V'nismach lo, and he leans on it, okay, which I'm inferring means does not go onto the top, meaning even if he leans on it, okay, Vafilo hayazar, even if he's a non-Kohen, harze nitzal, he is saved. Ve'in lokhin osu mi'al mizbeach lamus le'olam, ela imkin nischayev misas beistin be'edus gemura v'hasra kisharko harugi beistin tamid. And the only person we take from the mizbeach to be killed is if someone who is liable for death by beistin with complete testimony and warning, like all the other people who were liable for Beis Din. Okay, so it turns out that there are two functions of refuge for the Beis Din. There's in a case of shogeg killing, if you are a Kohen and you go to the Beis Mikdash Mizbeach and you are on the top and you're doing avoda, then it provides refuge. Or completely separate case, if you are some random person, not random, if you're a person who is afraid that the king will kill you or the Beis Din will kill you, then you could get refuge at this Mizbeach even without Beis Din. And one of the other answers given is that that's what Yoav was trying to do, is that he thought that Shlomo HaMelech was going to kill him not by taking him to court and getting him convicted for intentional murder, but he was going to be exercising his powers of the king to do an extrajudicial killing, and that's why he thought that the Mizbeach would help him, but it didn't. I don't know if it didn't because it wasn't the one in the Mikdash or what, but yeah. Okay, so that's the question. The question is, what's the deal with this halacha? Can we explain, this odd set of parameters? Anyone have any ideas? I'm not going to give you 2 weeks to think about this. That's what it took me. Yeah, Lauren.
This isn't an idea, it's just like another question.
Sure.
I guess I'm wondering why the pasuk makes it sound like the Mizbeach is for everybody when in reality it's really for such a small civic subset.
Yeah, that is a good question.
People.
There are a bunch of drushos that explain why it's because it does use the word, a weird word, im mizbechi, from with my mizbeach you shall take him to die. And so like to me, of all the ways that it explained it, and first of all, this is why you need Torah Pat. I mean, still a good question on Torah B'Ksav, but Mi'im Mizbeach means you should take him from with my Mizbeach, which means that even if he's okay, this is a whole other question. Hold on a second. Okay, there's a whole other opinion. No, I'm not gonna get into that. Yeah, all right, I'll just leave it as a good question. Yeah. I'll ask another question though, by the way, which is I mentioned that the laws of the Arei Miklat are spelled out in the end of Sefer Bamidbar and in Sefer Shoft, in Parashas Shoftim. Okay, so in Mishpatim it just says V'samti l'cha makom asher yanu shama, but in all those other parashas there's like dozens of psukim that go into these halachos. Okay, so why do you think the Torah waits until end of Bamidbar and Devarim to spell out all the halachos of the Arei Miklat? Like, why would that be a logical place in the Torah to spell out those halachos?
So it's not relevant till then.
Yeah, it's not relevant to then, right? Because when did Parashas Mishpatim take place?
Near Har Sinai.
Yeah, near Har Sinai, right? So whereas Bamidbar and Devarim, that's at the end of the 40 years, right when they're about to go into the land. Okay, right? So here's the weird thing. Okay, this Mizbeach halacha is also not relevant right now. Okay, why not? Because this is the Mizbeach in the base of Mikdash, and that's not going to happen for another 800 years. Okay, and just side question: if you murdered someone in the Midbar, where do you think you would flee to? Because there's no Arei Miklat. So what would be the equivalent of Arei Miklat in the Midbar? And the hint is, if you think about who lived in the Arei Miklat in Eretz Yisrael,
The Levium.
the Levium. So where's going to be the equivalent of the Arei Miklat in the camp?
Like the camp of the Levium? I don't know
camp
where
of the Levium,
where
right?
exactly,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the way it works, I'm not going to put my diagram up here, but you have the Israel, all the tribes are camped outside. Then you have the camp of the Levium, and then you have the Mishkan inside the camp of the Levium, and inside the Mishkan you have the Mizbeach, right? So practically speaking, even if this halacha did apply to the Mizbeach in the Mishkan, you as the unintentional murderer are safe as soon as you get into the Machane Levia, right? So in other words, my question is, if all of the main halachos about Arei Miklat are saved until the Jews are about to go and settle the land, because they're not relevant here, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu can only just give them the headings, okay? Why is this obscure halacha of the Mizbeach, does that rise to the level of a heading when it's not even practically relevant for the Midbar? So to me, this also indicates, this is a proof, I didn't see anyone say this, this is also proof that the main point of this is to convey philosophical ideas, not practical halachos, even though there are practical halachos here. The fact that of the 3 psukim that are summarizing all the laws of murder, this is one of them, Yeah, Ayala.
Also, not really an idea, but just a thought. This kind of is reminding me of, I think it's an idea when people have to give like a karban chatos or something, where they say that like this animal is being killed and brought to Hashem instead of you.
Interesting. Yeah.
So if you're like, when, I don't exactly know, but it's some also sort of thing where you're like, you could only be on top of the Mizbeach. I don't know like the logistics. That's, I guess, where the karbanos were burnt. Yeah,
that was where they were burned. Yeah, you could shech them off of the Mizbeach, and then you burn them on the Mizbeach, and then you sprinkle the blood on the side of the Mizbeach.
Okay, so I haven't fully thought that through, but
that's good intuition. This is exactly what I'm looking for here. Okay, that's like a new thought that I didn't think about, and we're trying to grasp for straws here. Oh, by the way, that was the other thing that frustrated me. Virtually no one gives any like explanations for this stuff, and it just drives me crazy. Okay, so Tamar.
Can I give a totally random other half-formed thought idea? Okay, so I had originally been sort of speculatively thinking that maybe there was some sort of idea specifically of not killing a Kohen while he was doing the avoda.
Okay.
But I feel like that's problematic with the thing of the if the king is coming to extrajudiciously kill you, then it works.
Right. Yeah.
So that's as far as
I would say develop that intuition, because it could be that there are 2 different reasons for why the Mizbeach does this, and I think if you develop one, then maybe you'll get there. Yeah, Ayala?
Maybe along those lines, like the Mizbeach somehow like overrides other powers because it's somehow like pointing to the idea of like ultimately we're serving Hashem. So like maybe either that could be through the Kohen doing the avoda, or in the sense where it's like the king or the Sanhedrin doing a harasha. Maybe like a harasha is like them exercising whatever control they have, but it's like somehow showing that ultimately the control is from Hashem.
Okay, good. So if you're going to take that approach, which is definitely a valid approach, then you have to say, well, why does it not provide sanctuary for someone who's a killer b'mezid? Right. So and the way that they describe it in the drushos is pretty not graphic like violent, but like it says if you have a mezid killer who's in the middle of doing avoda, then you knock him off the Mizbeach and take him to court. So we do interrupt avodas Hashem for mezid killers. Yeah, Tamar?
Also, just a different thought.
Sure.
I guess it's a question. So there's this thing which kind of has to do with the Mizbeach and the Kohanim and the Beis Hamikdash.
Yeah.
Then there's the death of the Kohen Gadol, which you were saying it's like a national tragedy.
Right.
But are those like...
That's one explanation, by the way, about why the Kohen Gadol. That's a whole other question about why should this guy's sentence, the mikla, be variable and be affected by the death of the Kohen Gadol?
Right. Yeah. So I guess my question was like, do you think that the two things that involve Kohanim are related in the Kohanim way?
Good. Yes. So I had this intuition and I found a source to support it. That's one of the approaches I'm going to share. Yeah. Okay. So what I have found is I have found 3 potential approaches. Okay. And they're all incomplete. Okay. So the first one I'm going to introduce with methodology. Okay. So the Rambam in the Nevuchim 329 says, and this is a well-known opinion of the Rambam, but this is the source. I say that my knowledge of the belief, practice, and worship of the Sabians, which was an ancient idolatrous nation, has given me an insight into many of the divine precepts, meaning the mitzvos. I'm going to use the word mitzvos because I hate the word precepts. No one uses that in real life. And has led me to know their reason. Okay, so he's saying that because of his knowledge of these ancient Ovdei Avodah Zarah, that gave him insight into the reasons for the mitzvahs. I will mention to you the works from which you may learn all that I know of the religion and the opinions of the Sabians. You will thereby obtain a true knowledge of my theory as regards the purpose of the divine precepts. The knowledge of these theories and practices is of great importance in explaining the reasons of the mitzvahs. For it is the principal object of the Torah and the axis around which it turns to blot out these opinions from man's heart and to make the existence of idolatry impossible. So this is a famous opinion of the Rambam, that the more you learn about ancient idolatrous cultures, then the more you'll understand the reasons for the mitzvahs. Okay, so you might ask, well, what does this have to do? What does this have to do with our case? Okay, so Shadal, interesting, the Rambam does not apply this to our case, but Shadal writes in his commentary here, Mizbeach, Hamikdashos v'hamizbachos hayu mekomos miklat etel kadmonim. The temples and the altars were places of refuge for the ancients, meaning the cultures before Torah. Alkin achar she'amar v'samti l'cha makom asher yanus shama. Therefore, after God says, "I will make a place for you to flee there," Hosif, he adds, Ki'in miklat lemezid, that there is no refuge for the mezid. Va'afilu yitvos bekarnos hamizbeach yikachuhu misham v'yamisuhu, and even if he's clinging to the horns of the altar, you take him from there and kill him. Okay. So that was the first thing I saw. That was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I think I have shown this book to you. Hold on, let me get it. See, we have to have the traditional, in every shiur, I have to advertise a book. Okay. So did I show this to you? The Koran Tanakh of the Land of Israel. It's very good. It is, it has little article. First of all, it's published by Koran. The translation of the Tanakh itself is done by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And it has these little articles that provide insight based on modern findings in archaeology, Egyptology, Near East studies, Mishkan, language, geography, flora and fauna, and halacha. And it is basically it's giving you academic sources, but this is a firm publication. So they're not going to give you any heretical things. So on our pasuk, here's what it says. Altars and temples in the ancient Mediterranean world had a dual role, functioning primarily as places of worship, but also as places of asylum or refuge. The two roles are so closely identified with each other that even in modern English, the word sanctuary means both, which I think is a cool fact. Right? Sanctuary means a holy place, and also means a place where you can be safe. An example of using an altar as a place of refuge appears on an Aramaic stele from Sephire from the 8th century BCE, which identifies Aleppo, the site of the temple of the storm god Hadad, as a place of refuge. In another instance, in the 5th century BCE, the Greek historian Thucydides wrote, "He who has committed an involuntary misdeed finds refuge at the altar." The Torah provides a safe haven at the altar for unintentional murderers, in addition to the cities of refuge specifically designated to protect them, but denies it for those who intentionally take a life. This is the first instance in the ancient Near East of a law that tries to abort the cycles of murder, which plague societies that accept the idea of blood vengeance. Okay, so I think based on this provides an opening for why the Torah has this special halacha of mi'im mizbechi tikachan lemus, and I'm not sure if it explains everything. In fact, I don't think it explains everything, but anyone want to take a stab at no, that was not a murder joke. Anyone want to attempts to take those sources of Shadal saying that this was a common practice, and then the Koran Tanakh saying that this was a common practice of, like, finding a sanctuary at temples, and maybe come up with an explanation for our halacha here. Yeah, Lauren.
So maybe it's trying to like reorient you that like this Mizbeach ultimately is in service of God, and God like does not want you to use his service as a way to like protect you if you're doing the wrong thing. Like I think sometimes people take their religion as a way to like shield themselves. So I'm wondering if maybe like it's taking this idea of Mizbeach and saying like it's not like a magical place where you can be protected. If you killed someone on purpose, then it does nothing.
Okay, good. So that's what I was thinking as well. So these other gods basically are not gods of justice, right? These are gods of whim, gods of capricious gods with their own like human emotions. Our God is a God of justice, and so don't think that just by aligning yourself, with the holy spot, the holy location of God, that you can somehow escape justice. Okay, and the Sforno I think takes this approach because he says, so mi'im mizbechi, from my mizbeach, afal pi shekol machane levia hayakolid b'midbar. Okay, so he's answering a question. What is this doing in the parsha of Mishpatim? So he's saying that practically you would get refuge just by entering the machane levia, but he's saying conceptually, from my mizbeach, even if this Zadon killer got to my Mizbeach, Tikachen Lamus, you should take him. And he quotes a pasuk in Yirmiyahu 7:11. Hama'aras paritim haya habayis hazeh. So I'm going to read this in context. Okay. Oh, I forgot which pasuk is. So it says like this: "Thus says Hashem, Master of Legions, God of Israel." So this, remember, is in the time of Bayis Rishon when Yirmiyahu was trying to get them to do tshuva because of their all of their evil ways. "Improve your ways and deeds, and I will cause you to dwell in this place. Do not trust the false statements that say, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, the sanctuary of Hashem, the sanctuary of Hashem, the sanctuary of Hashem are they. Only if you truly improve your ways and your deeds, and if you truly do justice between man and his fellow, do not oppress the stranger, orphan, and widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, do not go after the gods of others to your own harm, then I will cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I give to your forefathers forever and ever. Behold, you trust the false statements that are of no use. Can one steal, murder, and commit adultery, and swear falsely, and burn incense to the Baal, and go after the gods of others that you never knew, and then come and stand before me in this temple, upon which my name is proclaimed, and say we are saved, in order to continue committing all these abominations? And here's the puzzle that Sforno quotes: has this temple upon which my name is proclaimed become a cave of criminals in your eyes? Behold, I have seen it, the word of Hashem. So I think that's addressing that emotion you were describing, Lauren, of people think that they can do all sorts of bad stuff and then just be religious, and then that's going to save them, So generally speaking, and I realize this doesn't answer all the questions, what the Torah is really doing here is it's not saying this halacha primarily for practical reasons, because like we said, the parameters are so narrow that it doesn't seem practical. But it's saying this for polemical reasons, that the Torah was given in a culture where people thought that you could just go and touch the God's altar and then be free from punishment, But this is saying, no, if you try to do that with Hashem's altar, we take you to be killed, because God does not provide a haven for murderers, So that's the general idea. Now the question is, well, then why all the strictures for shogeg? And why Kohen with the avoda biado? Why only the roof of the mizbeach? That's the part I can't explain. Okay, but what I'm saying, this essence of this answer is saying that the main purpose is the way the Torah Shabbat expresses it is if you are a Zadon killer and you try to get refuge at the altar, then you're going to be taken away, okay, and be killed. Yeah, Alex?
Maybe there are so many kind of steps for someone who kills a shogeg because there's like this idea of like you should be extremely mindful and careful in all aspects to avoid bad things.
Right.
So even though you didn't do it on purpose, God still is like, you have to like live your life in accordance in a way that like, you know, you're not making stupid mistakes that have like huge ramifications.
Right. Okay. So you know what? Let me springboard off of that and something that someone else said earlier, which is that I'm going to talk about this thought before I call on the rest of you, just because before it flees away. Flees away. See, I've been thinking this so long that I've got all of the terminology buzzing around in my head. So we have to remember that if you kill unintentionally, you forfeit your life. Okay. So the real question is not why does the Mizbeach only save under these specific circumstances. The real question is why does the Mizbeach save at all? And I think you can combine this with what Ayala was saying earlier, which is that, yeah, you as a shogeg killer have forfeited your life. Okay. If you go to the Ir Miklat, that's the real institution. Okay. However, if you are doing if you are the paradigm of avodas Hashem, okay, which is a Kohen doing avoda on the Mizbeach, which is the institution of kapara, which is the entire purpose of the Beis Hamikdash. So in that moment, that's the only thing that could justify your existence, you know, and protect you from death. But other than that, like then your life is the life that you had, you spent it by being negligent and you forfeited it, you know. So only insofar as you represent this idea of paradigmatic avodas Hashem can you be protected by the Mizbeach, but otherwise you're fair game just like everywhere else. Yeah, Tamar?
Just maybe a complimentary point.
Sure.
Also is I mean, I think you were getting at the idea, the sort of like positive idea of this, but also I think that if you wanted to have the idea that God's Mizbeach does not protect a Zadon killer, then I think it's more effective to have a protection which has an exception for Zadon or something like that, like it doesn't apply to Zadon, as opposed to like nothing. Because you could just have the Mizbeach not be a sanctuary, and then that would be different from what people were doing before, but it wouldn't have this idea.
I see what you're saying, meaning this highlights, you mean this allows you to highlight the fact that it doesn't protect the Zadon killer?
Yeah, like the pasuk couldn't say this if there was no, I mean, maybe it could say this, but like it wouldn't mean like the idea of like there's protection on the Mizbeach, but not for you, Zadon killer. Like that. Yeah.
That okay. I think that's a good approach also. Right. That fits into the rhetoric of the pasuk. Yeah. And you can't get that from the Ir Miklat thing because the Ir Miklat, there's no idea of like, that has nothing to do with like, you know, thinking that God can save you, you know, that's just the practical refuge, you know? Okay. That's good. Yeah. Lauren?
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe the reason why there are like so many exceptions to this, like so many like specifics for the shogeg, I guess similar to like what Alex was saying, but there's so many like specifics because we don't want the Mizbeach to be just considered a refuge. Like the Torah wants it to be that it's only a refuge under these very specific circumstances to prevent that idea of like that kill, like Mizbeach can save from killing.
Right. Yeah, so that's still though. So I think that also does need a complementary idea of why have any refuge at all then, you know, because it would be the cleanest idea to say that there's no refuge at all. Yeah, Ayala?
Also, not really such a like big thought, but I'm just reading the pasuk again, and it kind of seems like it could be read like if it's not taken so literally of just like the extreme, like from the Mizbeach will be taken away, of like from the world, from serving Hashem, which is the purpose of this world, like everything, whatever, like a very extreme statement.
Yeah,
kind of.
Okay, I hear that. Yeah, that's creative reading. Okay, so that was approach number one. Okay, so we got more out of that than I had, so I'm already happy. Okay, approach number two, I actually is not as long. I read this in the Yad Peshuta commentary on the Rambam, which has become my new favorite commentary of Nachum Rabinovich. So he says, and really he just gets it from the Rambam, but I'm giving him credit for directing me there. He says, Hishve Mora Nevuchim Gimel Lamates. So compare this to the Rambam and the Mora Nevuchim in 339. Sham mone Rabbeinu mitzvos rabos shetachlisan lahargil es adam lechemla v'rachmim al hachalesh v'hamiskein. So there, the Rambam. So the end of the More Nevuchim in chapter 3, book 3 is he's giving the reasons for the mitzvos, all the explanations. So in that chapter, he gives many mitzvos whose purpose is to accustom a person to compassion and mercy on the weak and the poor. Okay, that's the cluster of mitzvos we're in. B'misgeres mitzvos elu, in this framework of mitzvos, nimne gam ha'isr lahaskir eved el adonav. He lists the prohibition to return a slave to his master. Okay, and if you know anything about the Civil War or the slave, slavery in America, this was a huge problem of like returning slaves to their masters. So when a slave goes free, I don't know the halacha, I haven't brushed up on the halachos, but there's a losase of returning the slave to the master. Okay, so what's the purpose? Is shemataraso lahaknos la'adam mida na'aleh. The purpose is to imbue a person with this elevated mida, quote, that we provide shelter to the one who seeks it from us and we shield him. Okay, then the Rambam says as follows: on the opposite side or corresponding to this mitzvah of providing shelter for the slave, that if a willfully evil person seeks our refuge, our sanctuary, we do not provide for him any sanctuary. And we do not have any mercy on him. We do not have any way to take, we don't take his liability off of him at all. Even the most prominent person who seeks refuge, namely, take him from a Mizbeach to die. Because this guy, who again is a Kohen, who or I guess he's not necessarily a Kohen, but he's saying Adam Hagadol Vanala Bioser. So maybe he does mean a Kohen. I don't know. This guy is seeking shelter from Hashem, and he clings to the thing that is designated for God's name. We do not give him shelter there, but rather we give him over into the hands of the person who is appointed over righteousness, who he fled from. All the more so if someone seeks refuge from people, that it's not proper to provide him shelter and to be merciful on him, because having mercy on destructive Rashaim is cruelty to the rest of the people. I just want to check and see if I'm reading this correctly. Something about that didn't click. I will just quickly look in the English. Yeah, he says, the commandment given in God's saying, "Thou shalt not deliver unto his master a slave," besides manifesting pity, contains a great utility. Namely, it makes us acquire this noble quality, moral quality, that is pity. Namely, it makes us protect and defend those who seek our protection and not deliver them over to those from whom they have fled. It is not even enough to protect those who seek your protection, for you are under obligation towards him. Oh, then he goes on how you should provide him with stuff. Okay, fine. On the contrary, the wrongdoer and the worker of injustice should not be protected when he seeks our protection and should not be pitied, nor should his rightful punishment be abolished in any way, even if he seeks the protection of the greatest individual and the one having the greatest rank. Oh, that's what he's saying. The greatest individual and the greatest rank. I'm not sure what he's saying there. This is the meaning of the dictum, "Thou shalt take him from mine altar that he may die." Thus, the man referred to seeks the protection of God. Okay, so this translation says Chasos Adam Hagadol. I think my translation here is saying that from the greatest being. Like this guy's trying to take refuge from God. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. The man referred to seeks protection of God, may he be exalted, and holds fast to a thing attached to his name. In spite of that, however, he does not protect him, but orders him to be delivered into him who has the right to inflict punishment on him and from whom he has fled. All the more so if the man in question has sought the protection of a human individual. The latter ought not to protect or pity him, for pity for wrongdoers and evil men is tantamount to cruelty with regard to all creatures. Yeah. So that again is an explanation for the the institution of the Mizbeach not providing refuge to the Zadon does not really explain why the shogeg does get protected under these specific circumstances with the avoda. Okay, so that's approach number 2, partial approach number 2. All right, the last approach. So I was thinking. So my mind went in the similar direction as Ayala's. Like Ayala was thinking, well, what takes place on the Mizbeach on the top of the Mizbeach, you know? So I was thinking, what's special about the Mizbeach in the Mikdash as opposed to every other Mizbeach? Because functionally, you know, you can't attach this idea to korbanos, right? You know, because all korbanos, you know, all Mizbeachos, you have korbanos, you know? So like, what's the idea? So I was thinking to myself, where's the first place that the Mizbeach is talked about, that the Mizbeach and the Beis Mikdash is talked about? Anyone know? You would think probably this week's parsha of Truma, because it says to build the Mizbeach, but I think there's an earlier place. I think this is the earliest one. So if you'll remember, at the end of Parashas Yisro, after the Aseret Dibros, the Klal Yisrael is afraid and they don't want to talk to Moshe anymore. So then they say, okay, Moshe, you go up and you got the Torah from us. And then there's like 5 or 6 psukim that have seemingly like a random smattering of mitzvos. Okay, one of those mitzvos is how to build the Mizbeach that's temporary, and then how to build the Mizbeach that's permanent. Okay, so in Shemos 20, psukim 20 and 21, it says, Mizbach adama ta'aseli. An earthen mizbeach you shall build for me. V'zavachta alav es olosecha es shlamecha es tzonecha es pekarecha b'chol makom asher azkir shmi avu elecha v'rachticha. On it you shall slaughter your burnt offerings and your peace offerings and your sheep and your cattle. In every place that I mention my name, I will come to you and bless you. So that's mizbachos that are all over the place. But then the im mizbach avanim taseli. Here, Torah Pet tells us that the word im does not mean if, it means when. When you will build a stone mizbeach for me, and that's the mizbeach in the Beis Mikdash. I believe that is the mizbeach. I mean, Beis Mikdash one is made of stone. I think this is referring to that. Okay, I'm making that assumption. Lo tivne esen gazis. You should not build them with hewn stones, with stones that have been cut. Okay, why? Ki charbacha heinafta aleha, lest you wave your sword over it, vatachal aleha, and you desecrate it. Okay, so that's the halacha, is that you cannot cut the stones that are used to make the mizbeach in the Beis Mikdash. Okay, so why is that? So there are many reasons given, but the Mechilta, which is quoted by Rashi, says as follows: Mikan haya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, hamizbeach nivra laha'arich shenosav shal adam, v'habarzel nivra lakater shenosav shal adam. The mizbeach was created to prolong man's years, but iron was created to cut man's years short. Eno rashai lahanif hamakater ahamarich. It's not proper, or you're not permitted to waive the shortener of life over the prolonger of life. Okay, so I read that and I was thinking, okay, swords, murder, mizbeach, maybe there's some connection. And then I dismissed it. I was like, nah, that's a stretch. Okay, but then I read Rav Hirsch. Okay, which we're going to read the actual Rav Hirsch in a second, but I'm going to show you the primary source first. So Rav Hirsch is commenting on this pasuk about the Kohen Gadol that says v'hitilu ha'eda in Bamidbar 35:25. V'hitilu ha'eda es harotzeach miad goel hadam v'heshivu oso ha'eda el ir mitlato. So the assembly shall save the murderer from the goel hadam, and they will return. The assembly will return him to his ir miklat asher nashama, that he fled there. V'yashav ba ad mos haKohen Hagadol, and he will dwell there until the death of the Kohen Gadol asher mashach oso b'shem hakodesh, who was anointed with the Shem hakodesh. Okay, so the question we asked before: why is your release from the city of refuge dependent on the Kohen Gadol? So check this out. Again, I saw this and my eyes did the emoji thing with the stars, you know, because this is a real raya. Yalkut Shimoni says, and this is actually from the Sifrei, Rabbi Meir Omer, רוצח מקצר yamav shel Adam, the Kohen Gadol ma'arich yamav shel Adam. The murderer shortens the years of man, the days of man, and the Kohen Gadol prolongs the days of man. It's not proper for a person who shortens the life of man to be in the presence of someone who prolongs the life of man. Okay, so let me read you what Rav Hirsch says. Okay, so he introduces it by saying, it remains for us to consider the relation between the Kohen Gadol and the exile of the inadvertent manslayer to the Miklat city. Then he goes through pages, by the way. This is just one part of it. So then he quotes what we just read, which and he quotes it a little bit further than we did. So he quotes Rabbi Meir, which says the murderer shortens life, the high priest lengthens it. It is not right that the shortener of life should live in the presence of one who lengthens it. The murderer brings tuma, in the second statement, the murderer brings tuma upon the land and drives away God's presence. The high priest causes God's presence to dwell in the land. It is not right that he who brings tuma upon the land should live in the presence of the one who causes God's presence to dwell in the land. So Hirsch gives the moral of the story. If we take all these statements together, the basic idea is apparently this: the inadvertent killing of a human being is an incident that stands in contradiction to the mission of the high priest, and the high priest who is in office shares to a certain extent in the responsibility for the incident. Now that's part of his whole other theory, but this is just him acknowledging that this is a significant sifrei. So now the question is, can we work this into a theory for answering our question? So let me repeat the facts, okay? That the Mizbeach in the Mikdash specifically cannot be made through cutting. You can't make it by cutting the stone, because the Mizbeach prolongs life and iron shortens life. And it's not proper that which shortens life should be associated with that which prolongs life. Okay, to the point where you could desecrate the Mizbeach by doing this. If you cut the Mizbeach, then it's invalid. Okay. Similarly, the inadvertent killer is in the city of refuge until the Kohen Gadol dies. Why? Because the Kohen Gadol prolongs life, and this inadvertent murder shortens life. And it's not proper that the shortener of life should be in the presence of the prolonger of life. And by the way, this is a slightly different setup than the Rambam's explanation about the national mourning, because there he made it seem that you're keeping him safe in the city of refuge so the Goel Hadam doesn't get him, and the death of the Kohen Gadol is just going to cool down the Goel Hadam, and now you can release him. This explanation from the Sifrei, or from the Rav Hirsch, is saying, no, it's that you have to keep this guy away from the Kohen Gadol because thematically they're antithetical, right? So when the Kohen Gadol dies, you can release him because now he's not going to be in the presence of the guy who prolongs life. So can we find like an idea here? Yeah, Tamar?
This is a question, but less than, I think, like, just trying to put things in parallel, it seems like it's the guy shouldn't be allowed to go to the Mizbeach if he kills someone by accident.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Which just, it seems like the opposite, which is just
yeah, it does. Yeah. And that's why I think that the idea I gave about avoda before has got to play a role here, that like, if this guy, if it's just the guy, then then the Mizbeach does nothing for him, you know? But if he is doing the activity of the Mizbeach, like he is actually, prolonging life via the Mizbeach, so then that really, then he is aligning himself with the function of the Mizbeach, so to speak. Yeah, Lauren?
This is just a question or clarification, because I'm still confused with this Kohen, this last point now with the Kohen. So maybe I misunderstood this whole time. I thought that when the Kohen Gadol dies, then the inadvertent murderer is released, and then like he can't be killed anymore by the Goel.
Correct, yeah.
So then I guess I don't understand how him dying. I guess I'm not understanding the idea of the Sifrei.
Yeah, so the way the Sifrei is saying is that if you are a Kohen Gadol, if you are a murderer who shortens life, you cannot live in the presence of the Kohen Gadol who prolongs life, which means we have to exile you. So the only way you can, you can't enter into the realm of the Kohen Gadol, which is the entire land of Israel, right? You have to stay out of Israel, which is like in the cities of exile. Only when the Kohen Gadol dies can you then come in, because now you're no longer going to pose that contradiction.
Okay, I understand that. Thanks.
So we're keeping him away from the Kohen Gadol, not like in the Rambam's version where we're keeping him safe from the Goel Hadam, and the Kohen Gadol is just like the buffer zone. The death of the Kohen Gadol cools removes the threat. It's not like that. You see my frustration? I feel like there's definitely an idea here, And by the way, this is making me, one thing I'm also getting from this, by the way, is I think tomorrow night when I give the shiur, I don't think I'm even going to mention this halacha about the seeking refuge from the king who's trying to kill you or the Beis Din, I sense that that's a different idea. And I think the reason why it's a different idea, maybe that's an idea of God's authority, that like, yeah, God is not going to override a sentence from a court, because God is a God of justice, right? But if you were to if a king were allowed to kill you on God's altar as an exercise of his authority, that would be like overstepping like God's authority, like to kill in other words, Beis Din is executing justice and justice belongs to God, but the king is executing his own authority and the Beis Din is executing their own authority. So if they were to kill you on the Mizbeach, that would be like overstepping their boundaries and infringing on God's authority. Like we need God's authority to be supreme there. And we can't have you like lahavdil, like if you're an older sibling and like you were to like, I don't know, punish your younger sibling in front of your parents, like it's not your place to punish in front of the parent, like that's the parent's jurisdiction. So I either way, I sense that this halacha about like getting refuge from the king or the Beis Din is a separate halacha. I think we have to stick with the main halacha here. Yeah, Ayala.
Okay, so it still kind of seems weird to me. I think the idea that Tamara was saying that it's like contradicting. Like you'd think that if he specifically doesn't symbolize life or whatever, that he wouldn't be able to do Mizbeach.
Yeah.
But maybe somehow the guy, like he's normally like in contradiction with the Kohen, like fundamentally, unless he's like identifying himself with the Mizbeach and kind of like blending into that.
Right. Yeah.
And like only through that, it still kind of seems weird to me that he's able to do that. Yeah.
So here's let me just make it easier to accept that idea. We do have to remember that this guy, so on the one hand, this guy killed someone, so he's forfeited his life. Okay. And on the other hand, it was unintentional. Right. So I think the harsh condemnation that we feel should be reserved for the killer Bezadon. And that's why the Zadon doesn't get off at all. But the Shogeg, in other words, like this, the real thing is he forfeited his life and he is in mortal danger of the Goel Hadam, who can kill him at any time. So like in that sense, okay, maybe it's just a mushroom to use it. If he's not a Kohen or he's not doing avoda or he's on another part of the Mizbeach, then it's like being anywhere else on earth, which is you have no blood and the Goel Hadam is going to get you, right? Only when you go on the Mizbeach as a Kohen and you do avoda, then the Mizbeach sees you and sees, oh, Kohen doing avoda. I'm going to protect you, like that. I think that's the way we should think of it, where this guy is not a Russia, right? This guy is he did something really bad, but it was negligent and he forfeited his life. And that's what he deserves. He deserves to die, if the Goel Hadam can kill him. And the Torah gave him an out, but he's not there, So I think I think I'm warming up to this idea that like it's not that we have to explain why the Mizbeach doesn't provide him sanctuary if he doesn't meet these things. It's that we have to explain why the Mizbeach does provide him sanctuary only under these conditions, and that's to display this idea of at that moment he is like redeemed by the fact that he's doing avoda in a sense. Yeah, Lauren.
I mean, couldn't you just say like maybe like how Refuge has been saying it, like just like the avoda that the Kohen Gadol's in? We don't want something that's involved in prolonging life to also be associated with like killing. So
right. That's another approach. That's a good point.
That's prolonging life. So.
Right. In other words,
that we don't want that associated with. Yeah.
Right. In other words, if he is doing avoda and we kill him, and the Goel Hadam kills him, that is that's like that's the bad kind of mixing of the themes,
Yeah, it's a contradiction, I guess. Yeah, it's a contradiction. It's like the same idea of like the stones and like the sword and the stones in the Mizbeach and the
right.
And
if the murderer Bezadon is doing avoda, so he's already he's inherently a contradiction because he actually like killed someone. Right. Oh, by the way, that's another halacha that I was thinking of. This is good. Oh, Okay, Rabbi Sachs mentioned this in his essay, but I forgot to look it up. By the way, this is the this is pretty much the end of this year. I mean, that's all I have to say. But let's see, Kohen. So a Kohen is this is in the last halacha of Tefillah, Hilchos Tefillah Birkas Kohanim. Shisha Dvarim Monim Nesias Kapayim Halashon V'Hamumin V'Havera V'Hashanim V'Hayayim V'Tumas Hayadayim. So 6 things disqualify a Kohen from doing Birkas Kohanim: speech, blemishes, Avera, years, wine, and tuma of the hands. So what is this case of Avera? Avera Ketzad, Kohen Shaharagas Hanefesh, a Kohen, okay, this might be more relevant than I thought. A Kohen who killed someone, Afilu Bishgaga, even unintentionally, Alpha Pisha Asa Teshuva, Lo Yisa Eskapav. This might be good. He cannot do Birkas Kohanim. Shnemar, as it says, Yedechem Damim Maleu. It says, your hands are filled with blood. Uksiv Uvaparishchem Kapechem, Alim Einai Mikem. And it says, when you spread your hands in tefillah, I will hide my eyes from you. Okay, v'kohen she'avad avodah zara bein ba'ones bein b'shgaga afal pi she'asat tshuva eino nosei kapav le'olam. So kohen who worship avodah zara also can't. All right, that's it. It goes to the avodah zara. So that's interesting. I mean, it's funny because I don't think we prevent a kohen who did an avera from doing the avoda in the mikdash, but it is interesting. We single out. It's specifically a kohen who does murder and a Kohen who does avodah zara. Those are the 2 who we disqualify from Birkas Kohanim. Yeah. Okay. That's all I got. So the challenge is ideally I've written up all the facts in my article. I just got to fill in an idea. Okay, so I'd like to do that tomorrow, and then if worst comes worst, I don't write an article tomorrow, but I would like to have something to present for Friday night. So I feel like I could present the findings that we've had. I think we have enough of a direction that it will give people something to think about. But if anyone thinks of anything between now and tomorrow night, please tell me as early as possible. Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay, I'm just still trying to work out this like last thing.
Yeah.
Do you have like a recap of what you think the ideas are, or is that not?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. So the recap is, so approach number 1 is it's a polemic against avodah zara, okay, which is in the world of the ancient cultures and avodah zara, you did murder, you can just go to the god and go, bam, I'm safe, and just touch his altar because the god, that god doesn't care about justice. But our God says, nope, I don't care if you're touching my altar, take him away to get the death penalty, right? So that explains why the pasuk expresses it as the Zadon case, take the Zadon killer away from my Mizbeach. Okay, it doesn't explain the Shogeg case of the Kohen doing avoda. All right, approach number 2 was the Rambam in the More Nevuchim, who said that just as we have a mitzvah of returning, not returning an eved to his master to have compassion, so too we have mitzvahs, halachos that show. Sorry, we have halachos that say we don't provide compassion to Rashayim ever, even if a Rasha goes and seeks refuge from the one on high, from God, by touching his Mizbeach. We don't provide refuge because mercy on the wicked is cruelty to the innocent, and Kolshkein, if he seeks mercy, refuge from people. Okay, then the last idea, and that also doesn't really explain the narrow halachas about the shogeg. The last case we have is that the Mizbeach cannot be come in contact with metal because metal shortens life and the Mizbeach prolongs life, and it's not proper to put them together. So too, the unintentional killer has to remain away from the Kohen Gadol in the city of refuge because the Kohen Gadol prolongs life and the murderer shortens life, and it's not proper that they be in the same zone. Okay, that was a Rav Hirsch's idea from the Sifrei and the Michalta. And then we toyed around with this idea. So all of these would explain why the unintentional murderer cannot gain a sanctuary from the Mizbeach. But why does the unintentional murderer get sanctuary only under the parameters of avoda? So I think the last way I said it is the best. Really, this unintentional murder is not a Russia, but he did kill someone and forfeit his life. So the Torah provides him with sanctuary in the Arei Miklat. So why does the Mizbeach provide sanctuary if he's a Kohen doing avoda in the Beis Hamikdash? Because that is the paradigm of avodas Hashem, and his life is really, he's forfeited his life. His life has no value. He has no dam. But if he's presently engaged in avoda, in that, insofar as he is an Oved Hashem in that moment, then he does have value. His life does have value. And if the Gol Adam kills him there, then the Gol Adam is liable. And that act of avoda, see, we didn't explain this either. That act of avoda apparently is enough to serve as a portal for him to get to the Ir Miklat. That's part we didn't really work out. But the essential idea I'm saying here is that, like, that generally speaking, hold on. Yeah, here's how I'm conceiving it. The intentional murder, that's like the idea of the sword, and unintentional murder, touching the Mizbeach is like touching the sword to the Mizbeach, is you can't associate a shortener of life with a prolonger of life. But nah, I'm undecided. I was gonna say, but the unintentional murder, it's like on the Mizbeach is no different than off the Mizbeach, unless he's doing avoda. Like, I'm torn between whether you say that the unintentional murder is associated as someone who shortens life, and then doing avoda reverses it, or is the unintentional murder like just his life is valueless in the eyes of halacha unless he's doing this redemptive act of avoda? You know, slightly different way of looking at it. Still not clear.
I have questions about it, but I could try and
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, that I have a thought on the first approach also, but I think I'll remember that so I could save it for later.
Sure.
This one, I think, like, it seems very problematic to me still. Like, I thought that I understood it, now I don't again, because like this guy, like, well, it's just, I think it's a confusing thing about the way that the halachos seem to be presented, right? Because this guy, like, it sounded like he can't do what Birkas Kenohanim because of the unintentional murder, and
his hands are filled with blood, right?
Right. He shouldn't be he shouldn't be like associated with the Kohen Gadol, you know. Right. But then he is allowed to do avoda, or at least he has a benefit from doing avoda, which, like, it seems like it's the same problem, you know.
I think so. Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there's a problem. Yeah, I have to double check, but I am pretty sure that he's allowed to do avoda. I mean, that's the case here, right? Like, he is doing avoda and being saved.
It just seems very strange.
Yeah. Before I have you tell me the idea on the first approach, I'll call on Alex. Yeah, Alex?
Could it be that the fact that, like, murderers who kill Bashogeg have, like, the Ir Miklat as like a form of mercy almost? Could it be that mercy is extended when they're on the Mizbeach doing Avodat Hashem? Because, you know, it's like, and it's like, could that be the connect potentially?
Okay. So, you know, that actually reminds me of a fourth approach I have. Okay. And this approach did not play out, but I just want to show it to you in case it leads to something. So there is this idea that the Ir Miklat provides atonement. Okay. That he has to go there as a punishment, and like, that's his sentence. He's sentenced there and he gets atonement. Okay. And atonement is a form of mercy, right? Because, like, instead of being destroyed, then God gives us the, you know, kapara. Okay. So the other place I looked is where the Rambam talks about the Mizbeach in the Mikdash, which is in Sefer Avoda, Hilchos Beis HaBechira, chapter 2, halacha 2. HaMizbeach, sorry, he says, he starts off by saying, HaMizbeach mekomo mechuvan biyoser. The Mizbeach is in an exact location. The ein mashanin oso mimakomo la'olam. We don't change its place forever. Shneimar says, V'zeh Mizbach la'olah liYisrael. This is the Mizbach for the burnt offerings of Israel. Uve Mikdash ne'ekad Yitzchak Avinu. In the Mikdash, in that location, Yitzchak was the Akedas Yitzchak happened. Shneimar v'lech lecha el Eretz HaMoriah. V'nemar vayacha Shlomo livnos es Beis Hashem b'Yerushalayim b'Har HaMoriah. Okay, now here's the part that I want to get to. Umasoras biyad hakol. There's a universal, unanimously accepted Masorah. Shehamakum shabana bo David u'Shlomo hamizbeach begoren Arona. That the place where Shlomo and David built the Mizbeach in the Goren Arona, that's the place. Hu hamakum shabana bo Avraham avinu hamizbeach va'akad alav Yitzchak. That's where Avraham built the Mizbeach, and accepted and was did the Akedas Yitzchak. V'hu ha'makom shabana bo Noach kashiyatzim min hateva. That's the place that Noach built the Mizbeach when he left the ark. V'hu ha'mizbeach shehikriv alav Kain v'Hevel. That's the place, the Mizbeach, where Kain and Hevel brought their korbanos. Ubo hikriv Adam harishon kishenivra korban. That's where Adam brought a korban when he was created. Umisham nivra, and he was created from there, from that spot. Amru chachamim, the sages say, Adam mimakom kaparasa nivra. Man was created from the place of his atonement. Okay, now, Alex framed it in terms of mercy. Rambam's framing it in terms of kapara. But either you can go with the kapara idea, or you can say that is the form of mercy. It's mercy in the sense that we're protecting him from the gola hadam. It's mercy that we're not putting him to death, even though he killed someone. And it's mercy because we're giving him atonement in a place which frankly is not the worst place to live, because you've got all the Levium there. We actually, I think we pay for his, it's kind of like in jail where we pay for his livelihood, for his house and everything like that. And so it's a merciful existence, given the fact that he did the worst thing imaginable, which is killing a life. So it's not a stretch to me to say, like Alex is suggesting, that the Mizbeach can provide a similar type of mercy, based on its function, based on its its ritual function, whereas the Ari Miklat are for the practical function. Yeah, that's a good approach. Okay. Well, if you think of anything, let me know. Before.
Oh yeah, I could say that thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Say that thing, and then we'll stop.
Just I mean, I was kind of speculating about this before, but in the first approach, the idea of this polemic thing. So the question of why is there this obscure case where he does get sanctuary? Was that an open question?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was positing before maybe that the existence of an obscure case where there is sanctuary is necessary for the polemic.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that I don't know. I mean,
no, that was what you said before, right?
That was what I said before. Yeah. I don't know. I just didn't remember. Forgot. Lost. So I wanted to.
Okay. Yeah. No. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Meaning you need to single out. If you didn't have this halacha, then there'd be no way to single out the notion that God doesn't save intentional murderers.
Yeah, because there would be no context in which he's being not saved.
Right. Well, there would be, but it wouldn't say the idea about God, because you could still say that he can't go to the city of refuge, right? So he's not being saved.
Right. But there wouldn't be this person is not being saved by the Mizbeach.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that's a good approach also. Okay, good. This definitely helped me, by the way. So we're good there. Yeah, Alex.
I just have a practical question for this. In the case of say someone was, I don't know, they caused someone's death, but the person isn't quite dead yet. In that case, where they're definitely going to die, would they have to run right away before the death to the Ira Miklat?
I actually skimmed that halacha, but I don't know it, but I know where it is. Ein harotzech bishgaga gole ele im kain meis hanerag miyad. Someone who kills unintentionally is not exiled unless the person died immediately. But if he wounded him unintentionally, even though they evaluate him and say that he's going to die, and then he becomes sick, umeis, and he dies, eno gola, then he does not get exiled. Shema hu kerev as misas atzmo. Because maybe the guy hastened his own death, or haruach nichnasa b'chabura v'haragasahu, or maybe some bad air got into his wound and killed him. Afilu shachat bo kol shnei simanim v'aman ma'at. Even if he that's wild. That's an extreme case. Even if he accidentally cut the guy's trachea and windpipe, trachea and esophagus, and he lasted for a little while, eno gola al yado, then he does not get exiled. Lefikach imlo pirkis klal. Therefore, if the guy doesn't, what do you call it? Pirkis is not to shake, convulse. If the guy doesn't convulse, he says ra'ad v'nat nos bilti retonios b'shas hamaves. If he doesn't have death convulsions, or if he shechted him in a place where there's no wind, like a sealed marble house, then he gets exiled. I don't exactly get those last things, but I think that answers your question. That it has to be that he did it inadvertently and it killed the guy instantaneously.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That was it was very helpful. And even the areas that we didn't finish, I'm now banking on the Yeshiva Shalmala plan, when you're asleep and your unconscious works on it, because I'm doing this right before I go to sleep. So maybe it'll come together by tomorrow. Okay, thank you very much. And thanks for, I'm glad that we were okay switching, just as a side point in terms of the, habits and self-improvement and stuff like that and stress. So I was sitting here I prepared this Pirkei Avos shiur, like I do every Shabbos with Isaiah, but I prepared it on Shabbos, and usually I start reviewing it in the beginning of the day to prepare for the night shiur. I was only working on this today and working on a bunch of other stuff. So I got home later than I usually do from yeshiva, and I'm just my mind is on this. I'm so stressing out because I'm I have not reviewed the Pirkei Avos shiur yet. And then it just occurred to me whoa. First of all, this isn't even a commitment that I have in terms of yeshiva. This is a shiur that I'm giving on my own time, and you're coming to on your own time. No one is paying for this. No one is there's no life or death matters here. And we're all essentially here for learning, we're not here just for Pirkei Avos. And if this is what is going to produce the best Torah, and it's going to suffer if I rush through the Pirkei Avos thing, why would I give the Pirkei? It was one of these things where I had to talk myself into realize no, this is a totally a viable option. And so it's just sometimes I got so stressed out about the Pirkei Avos shiur, and this ended up being so much better. So thank you for allowing me to do that. Yep. Okay. Have a good night.
I'm glad I got to learn it too.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah, it's really
Thank you.
interesting.
All right, good.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
like these ideas. So.
Okay, good. Me too. All right, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. All right, let's
Thank
learn
you.
about this every week. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.